Hello and welcome to another historic video. Today I'm revisiting the Merfolk archetype, which has picked up a few new tools over the last couple months, especially with the unbanning of both Force of Negation as a free counterspell and Harbinger of the Seas, giving us some non-basic land hate, which can also steal some wins in certain matchups. And then Harbinger turning all non-basics into islands is also very synergistic with our Master of the Pearl Trident, giving other Merfolk +1/+1 and Island Walk, so we can now attack unopposed as long as our opponent has an island on their side. Then the Merfolk deck also has the typical lords like Vodalian Hexcatcher, giving other Merfolk +1/+1, can play this one at instant speed to maybe catch the opponent off guard, and we can also sacrifice a Merfolk at any point to counter a non-creature spell unless its controller pays 1 mana. So this is another very useful tool against some of the unfair combo decks in the format. And then to give us enough creatures to sacrifice to the Hexcatcher, the Silvergill Mentor has also been pretty good as just a solid 2 mana 2/1 that makes a 1/1 Merfolk token, so helps us go wide to take full advantage of all the lords pumping our team. Then I'm still playing the full set of Silvergill Adept, even though the format has sped up, it's still a solid 2-drop that will draw a card pretty consistently. And then the Floodpit Drowner gives us a nice tool against other creature strategies by tapping an opposing creature down and putting a stun counter on it. Very effective against mana creatures, which we can maybe keep locked down for several turns as well, and then hopefully we get to apply enough pressure in the meantime to get the game over with. And then at 1 mana, I'm playing the full set of Mistcaller, partly because I'm avoiding alchemy cards, but also because it's just very well positioned in the current meta as a hate piece against other Reanimator decks, as we can sack the Mistcaller, and then instead of reanimating their creatures, they get exiled instead. Also a great tool against some of the green tutor effects, like Court of Calling, Green Sun Zenith, or even Collected Company, since those creatures now get exiled instead. And then the Mindspring Merfolk gives us a fine early play that can later draw us a few more cards and also put additional +1 counters on the team, so a pseudo lord that's also fine to play early and maybe pump up with our lords to get in some damage. And then since we are playing a blue deck, we typically don't have access to many removal spells, but Dismember at the cost of 4 life can still take out an opposing creature early on, so that's another pretty important card in certain matchups. And then at 3 mana, besides Harbinger, we also have 2 copies of Svelin of Sea and Sky, a 3/4, giving other Merfolk a ward 1, and it also becomes indestructible as long as we have 2 other Merfolk and draws a card when it attacks. So a very nice card draw engine that protects the team and can also be a nightmare for some other decks to deal with. So overall, the curve of the deck is quite low. We're not playing a ton of 3-drops. Force of Negation we're often going to cast for free, and then Sink into Stupor is mostly a land, but can occasionally also be used as a bounce spell or counter spell, and can also be pitched to a Force of Negation as a blue spell in hand. And then our mana base is 13 islands, Otawara can be channeled, and then Cavern of Souls can make our Merfolk uncounterable, at least for as long as we don't control Harbinger of the Seas, because that will also shut down our own non-basic lands, but Cavern can still be useful against some of the blue-white High Noon decks, even though a lot of their counter spells don't technically counter our creatures, so it's only really useful against Scars like Remained, but can still be pretty useful. And against the High Noon deck, we also have plenty of flash creatures that can make it difficult for the opponent to shut us down. And then Mutavault, also a very nice creature land, as long as we don't have Harbinger, can turn into a 2/2 with all creature types, so it also gets pumped by all the lords. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play with a 1-drop heavy hand, so we're good against some of the unfair decks like Reanimator. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. Start with Mistcaller, next turn we can Mindspring plus Mistcaller, or maybe keep one in hand if we want to keep Force available in the opponent's turn. Okay, Greedy Freebooter, so looks like an unfair deck trying to maybe use Culling the Weak to ramp out cards like Balustrade Spy or Charbelcher. So Hexcatcher should be good too. Yeah, don't mind a Hexcatcher this turn. Opponent's happy to block. So we're better against Charbelcher than we are Balustrade Spy. Although depending on what they are planning with the Spy, Mistcaller can prevent the opponent from bringing back certain cards out of the graveyard as well. Shambling Ghast resolves, can maybe answer the Hexcatcher if it dies. So that's gonna stall out our attacks for a while. And yeah, lots of cheap sacrifice fodder. Could also just be a Chthonian Nightmare deck. Okay, Harbinger is decent. So can play that. Also kind of enables the Force, which we weren't able to hardcast before. And then it's just waiting on one of our lords, the one that gives Island Walk would be ideal. They do still have black mana thanks to the treasure. Shambling Gas attack. Take 2. Silvergill isn't bad. So can get in with Harbinger and probably the Mistcaller as well. And then Silvergill, reveal Mindspring. And play it. But all the modal dual-faced lands definitely points towards something like a Charbelcher. There's a Balustrade Spy. So I cannot counter it, but we'll see what they end up milling. I guess I want to sacrifice the Mistcaller now. Because otherwise it may be too late. So Narcomoebas are going to be exiled. They do still resolve all the creeping chills. So we're down to 6. Our opponent can group project with flashback, which is normally how they get back Arclight Phoenix. I can still force it just to stop a 2/2 token from being generated, or I can use the Hexcatcher. So yeah, I mean, the Phoenix is not gonna come back at any other point, I don't think. So I think I may as well force it. Pitching another Mistcaller. So now it's mainly the damage from Balustrade Spy that I'm worried about. Opponent says good game and scoops it up. Alright, maybe a little bit premature since, yeah, they could have still tried to win the fair way, but Mistcaller just completely wrecks the Balustrade Spy plan of bringing back a bunch of creatures for free. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We have a pretty one-dimensional hand. At least we do have Dismember for a bit of interaction, and then it's just master after master. So, missing Harbinger to turn the opponent's lands into islands, but I think I'll try it. Opponent blue-whites, there's a Harbinger. Okay, so maybe wait on Cavern. There's no 1-mana counterspells I'm worried about. This could be the blue-white High Noon deck. So then Fragment Reality is typically their 1-mana removal. No, Erode. Pretty happy to see that. Gives me a land. Field of Ruin into High Noon, as we suspected. Well, I think we slam down Harbinger here. While we can. Opponent loses access to white mana. And Hexcatcher and some of our other flash creatures also play well into the High Noon, as we can still maybe double spell by playing at sorcery speed in our turn and flashing in something in the opponent's. Opponent's gonna bounce Harbinger. So, despite the Cavern, our opponent can still quote-unquote counter it with cards like Reprieve. So then I prefer playing the Master and flashing in Hexcatcher to spend my mana more efficiently. Making sure Hexcatcher has Cavern. Remand is the one that actually counters, so that does reward them for countering while we don't use a cavern. So now I can try Hexcatcher. They might also have ways like the Even Interrupter to exile spells, which also gets around Cavern of Souls. And they may also be trying to use Field of Ruin on the cavern at some point. But yeah, opponent is probably worried about Harbinger right now. So, what's the plan? I mean, Master of the Pearl Trident still gives Island Walk, which is relevant. So I could start there. Still have Dismember up in the opponent's turn. Opponent's going to bounce the Hexcatcher. So then Master resolves, and I can flash in Hexcatcher in the opponent's turn again. So that was an okay exchange. Opponent runs out Otawara. And it's going to Field of Ruin to maybe get their planes while they can. Let's play the Hexcatcher now, before the opponent gets their untapped land. Opponent had a Reprieve, which as we said also gets around Cavern, but in this case we weren't using it. Alright, so opponent has cast their one spell, I did the same, draw Mutavault, which is decent too. So we can finally get an attack in, keep Hexcatcher for the opponent's turn, and then I actually don't hate going for Harbinger here, even though it shuts down the freshly cast Mutavault. Also plays around a potential spell Snare that they might have had. So no white mana for you. So maybe they don't have basic planes, otherwise they probably would have searched it up. Play Borrower, I'll play Hexcatcher, opponent cannot counter because of High Noon. So yeah, the Merfolk deck is kind of toying with the Azorius High Noon deck right now. Can add Master to the board. And Smash. And then we've got Force of Negation as backup, and yeah, nothing our opponent can do about it. So this is part of the reason why I wanted to dust off Merfolk, is thinking that this would be a decent matchup thanks to all our flash creatures and other instant speed plays, and I think it definitely lined up that way. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We've got Mistcaller into Silvergill, Harbinger, and then some nice cheap interaction. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. So against Reanimator, Mistcaller and Force are great. Against some of the greedier mana bases, Harbinger can knock the opponent out. Steam Vent's looting, so likely a Phoenix deck. So Harbinger is okay, but of course, alright, never mind. It is actually Reanimator. So then the Mistcallers are preferred turn 1 play. Now Silvergill, trying to hit some more land drops. Gonna keep the Harbinger surprise. And yeah, opponent's mana base is not gonna have any basics, so Harbinger should also be very effective. So this is pretty much the dream start against Reanimator. Turn 1 Mistcaller, turn 3 Harbinger with a Force as backup to stop an early reanimation spell. Because yeah, opponent is going for Galta. I mean, I could just sack the Mistcaller here. That's maybe still better. So then Galta gets exiled, opponent loses Galta in the graveyard, and they still take all the damage. And then now Harbinger shuts down the rest of their mana. So then the game's going to be over very quickly. Still have a Force as backup to maybe protect the Harbinger. But yeah, opponent's just dead here, can play Master and attack for 6. So yeah, Merfolk, a pretty nice answer to some of the Reanimator strategies, assuming you draw the right hate cards. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We've got Drowner, double Hexcatcher. Sink into Stupor can be held as interaction. So, yeah, I mean, we've got game against non-creature spells and game against creatures. So, seems good enough for now, even if it's nothing exceptional. Let's see what we're up against. Turn 1 Mountain and a Percussionist, so looks like an aggressive deck. And can maybe wait on the Drowner. See what they play next. Could be a red-white Convoke deck as well. Just mono-red for now. Epicure. I mean, they definitely seem to have some artifact synergies. So our opponent probably has Golgotha Rebirth and Gleeful Demolition, which can both make 3 1/1 goblins by sacrificing an artifact or destroying it. Alright, so I guess we can drown the Tomb Raider now. Because of double Hexcatcher, I'm not super interested in trading the Drowner, since we'll be able to make it bigger. So play Mistcaller, and then attack, hoping they block. If not, I'll still play the Hexcatcher. So the race is on, and when we're racing we just want to draw more lords to pump the team. Yeah, there's a Bushwhacker, but without any token generators, so yeah, we can let that one go. Chain Lightning my Hexcatcher will protect it. If they really wanted to take out Hexcatcher, they would have played it before the Bushwhacker. But again, I don't think Mistcaller helps, because it doesn't stop tokens from being generated. So they can hit me for 6. And Force of Negation. Okay, so could still be in a bit of trouble here. Hexcatcher is kind of small to start out. I think I still attack with it, hoping they don't have another Bushwhacker. Next turn we can maybe bounce something with Sink into Stupor. They are down to 1 card. Could be the Bushwhacker with the Surge ability. Doesn't look like it. Alright, let's line up some blocks then. I guess for 3 mana they could also have a way to pump the team, but presumably it's a non-creature spell we can force. So then this seems reasonable to me. Taking 4. Also can't forget about Barbarian Ring and Ramanap Ruins. And it was a Chain Lightning. 3 to the face. Puts me to 4. I'm okay forcing this, because I may not get an opportunity to otherwise, and there's nothing I necessarily want to bounce with Sink either. So let's make use of it. And Harbinger, not a bad draw. Shuts down Ring and Ramunap Ruins. So now we want to make sure we get in enough damage while not putting ourselves dead to, let's say, another Goblin Bushwhacker, which they can still kick. But yeah, I think we are fine to go all out, put our opponent to 1. Have 2 blockers back. So they certainly didn't have their best possible draw, missing the actual token makers. And yeah, this is a desperation attack, hoping to maybe get something off the Percussionist. And that'll be game. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We've got Mistcaller, Double Mentor, Harbinger. So we've got some game against unfair decks, and then Harbinger to hopefully punish their mana base. Does also stop my Mutavault. Still need a Lord to pump the team, so this hand's far from perfect, but I'll give it a shot. And then hopefully the Harbinger will just steal a quick win. Turn 1 Forest into Tormod's Crypt, okay, was not expecting that sequence. And a Llanowar Elves. So maybe just a green elf deck that's tired of losing to Reanimator. So Mistcaller can stop something like a Collected Company or Chord of Calling. But generally elf decks are quite favored against Merfolk since they can just empty their hand very quickly and mostly ignore cards like Harbinger. So not loving my chances here. Still happy to trade Mistcaller for Llanowar Elves. My best hope is that I draw lots of lords. Floodpit's Drowner can be good against elves, tapping down an elf for multiple turns. And Dismember's good too. That's the half of the deck we want to draw. Another basic forest into a War Master, which is going to go very wide. So it's going to quickly outpace our Silvergill Mentor. So yeah, this is probably going to showcase why elves beat Merfolk more often than not. Hexcatcher was a reasonable draw. So then attack, see if we can line up a good Hexcatcher. If not, just play Mentor. But opponent's going to know something's up. I think I still go for Mentor over Hexcatcher, since we have the Mistcaller to stop Court of Calling or Company. And this way we generate more creatures to hopefully keep up with the opponents, but again, that's probably not going to hold for very long. But yeah, the Elf deck has definitely fallen off in recent times. Just not quite the deck it used to be in Historic, even though it reigned supreme for a long time, especially in Best of One. Freyalise would have been nice to counter, but yeah, that's going to resolve.
Nature isn't some fragile leaf. It's the
Untaps Llanowar Elves.
harmony with nature is our greatest strength.
Plays another Mystic, which is now 2/2, artificially inflated. And a Shepherd, which can also maybe grow the team next turn. And now green spells cannot be countered, so that also applies to the Hexcatcher's ability. Mistcaller's still potentially useful, but that's about it. Take my turn. So, yeah. Could activate Mutavault, maybe go all after Freyalise. And then flash in a Hexcatcher. Could be worth it to protect the Mistcaller, but yeah, I'll just try this. If they let Freyalise go, we just play another Mentor second main. Alright, these blocks could work out quite nicely. Eat 2 Elf tokens, still take out Freyalise. But our opponent still has access to 5 mana here, so they're 1 away from activating the Shepherd. So my best hope is that they stop drawing elves so they can't make more tokens with a War Master. Green stands for 4, so yeah, that's where Mistcaller will maybe save the day. Hexcatcher wouldn't have helped because of Shepherd making it uncounterable, so now whatever they search up is just getting exiled. So goodbye, Elvish Archdruid. Well, at least we're still making a game out of it. Take 2. Can we draw another Lord? Force of Negation is our worst draw here. Okay, so Mutavault gets in. Play another Mentor. This is not a bad attack. Opponent's going to take it all, so if we had another Hexcatcher they would be dead. Right now they're still taking 13. So yeah, another Mentor going wide. Could maybe set it up next turn. Against all odds. Another Mystic, makes a token with War Master. But they still cannot activate Shepherd on defense, so it's not like they can block and then pump the team, which would be a nice play. So they're just gonna have to trump a whole bunch, and we drew the Master now. So yeah, the Tormod script can definitely be a lifesaver against some decks, but it was just a dead card in this matchup, and you can't afford many of those. All-out attack, just 1 creature needs to connect. but these are going to be mostly chum blocks. And our opponent scoops it up. So yeah, Merfolk miraculously beating elves. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. Sadly drew both my copies of Mutavault. There is a drawback to including it. So not going to be able to do much besides cast a Dismember and maybe a Force. So I don't think I can keep. This one is a bit more balanced. Could get rid of a land, hoping to draw another one. Or we can get rid of maybe the 1-drop, which is the least impactful by itself. Opponent does not have a companion. I think I get rid of a land here. Turn 1 forest into a hierarch. Could be a Junt deck. They did start with basic forest, so that makes my Harbinger less effective. But next turn we can maybe tap down the hierarch in their upkeep. So then it's going to be taken out of commission for 2 turns. And a Badger Mole. Alright, so they've got 2 mana left for a Marionette Apprentice, so probably a Yawgmoth combo deck. And yeah, that's going to be one of the tougher matchups. A creature combo deck that has kind of built-in removal. Our counters for non-creature spells aren't super effective. And with all their mana creatures, they can ignore the Harbinger for the most part. So, still going to go for Floodpit's Drowner here. Tapping down, I guess, the Hierarch. And hope they don't play Yawgmoth. Hapatra is one part of the combo, so now if they can Court of Calling for Yawgmoth at some point, we could be in trouble. Take 2. Alright, I think we still Harbinger. And that might affect some of their options, as they now only have the 1 basic forest. Although the birds can now also help out. Cub hits for 2. +1 from Exalted would be 3. And goes for the token instead. So yeah, now with the birds, I don't see myself stopping a Court of Calling. Even with a Hexcatcher sacking multiple Merfolk. That seems ambitious. Especially when they can potentially cast it at instant speed. So then tapping something down with the Drowner is not going to be all that impactful. So, behold a Merfolk. I think I still try the upkeep Drowner. No attacks. And I may as well go for the birds now. Opponent passes. Do have the Mind Spring available as a mana sink. I think I would rather get the Hexcatcher in play first. And I guess we can exhaust at instant speed, so I'll just pass. Opponent does nothing. Think I still try Hexcatcher here. They might Court in response, they don't. So do I want to exhaust without drawing cards, just for the +1 counters? I think I'm going to be patient, since we don't have a whole lot going on. Second Hexcatcher is nice, but the 1 in play should suffice. So let's draw 2. Okay, now we can maybe get a little bit more aggressive. Get in with the 4-powered creatures. Harbinger maybe still stays back. Opponent seems to have a response. Yeah, court for 4. So we'd have to sacrifice 3 Merfolk to counter this. But if I don't, our opponent gets a Yawgmoth. And Yawgmoth kind of shreds my board anyway, so here goes nothing. We do have that Author 1-drop Merfolk that could potentially stop something like Court of Calling, since the creature would get exiled instead. So that's 1 court dealt with. Opponent takes 8. Gotta hope they don't have another one. Alright, opponent just had a Yawgmoth all along. Or they just top-decked one. And yeah, now Yawgmoth plus Apatra is gonna quickly decimate our board. They do still have a limited life total to work with, so we'll see what happens. They're gonna take out the Hexcatcher first. The problem is all the death-touching snake tokens now too. Of course, we could just give our team Island Walk with the right Lord, so then we can still attack past all the blockers. And another chord now for 3, probably getting a Sephiroth. And yeah, that should be game over. So yeah, didn't find the right interaction for this matchup. The Drowners did buy us a little bit of time. But yeah, it's actually that turn 1 basic forest that actually made a huge difference as well. Without it, Harbinger could have maybe locked him out a bit longer. And then, as we said, we've got Author 1-mana Merfolk. That's the perfect counter to a Court of Calling. But did not see that one in time. So now our opponent can just infinitely sacrifice snake tokens, sustaining the life loss from Yawgmoth with a life gain from Sephiroth. And we get drained in the meantime. And that'll be game over. Force of Negation also would have been useful at stopping a chord, depending on when they cast it. Because if they cast it in my turn, then we cannot force it for free. Haywire Might can also gain them more life. Harbinger down. Fall to 4. Fall to 3. And Drowner down. And yeah, we are dead here. The Apprentice also draining us alongside Sephiroth. This one does not gain life, so that one doesn't necessarily go infinite with Yawgmoth, but once Sephiroth is involved, we are dead. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We've got Force to stop any shenanigans from our opponent, and then a decent curve into Harbinger to maybe punish their mana base. So depending on the matchup, this could line up favorably. Turn 1 Island, so now the Harbinger's not looking so hot anymore. I'll try Silvergill first, since we might struggle to reveal a Merfolk later. Whereas with the Mentor, we can always behold a Merfolk that's already in play. So against Island, I guess we just want to draw Master of the Pearl Trident. Shifting Woodlands is still maybe worth shutting down with a Harbinger, so I'll go for it. So no green mana. Next turn we can double Mentor. They do have a basic Plains. So a banned ramp deck maybe. Could also be a deck trying to cheat out Omniscience with the Shifting Woodlands if they enable Delirium. Did actually draw the Master. So then we'll go for Master into Mentor, and then I get to keep up Force. Can attack first. Are we afraid of a sweeper? I mean, force should cover it, so... And then the Mind Spring Merfolk can also be activated if we run out of other things to do. So, Moment of Truth. Something like a Supreme Verdict, of course, would get around Force of Negation. Opponent trying to bounce the Harbinger to unlock green mana. But yeah, I think we let that slide, since I don't think green mana enables anything too amazing. And yeah, opponent scoops it up, I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have Mistcaller and Force for some of the unfair strategies. Hexcatcher, also good against non-creatures. Our hand's a bit weak against actual creature decks, but our opponent's not running a companion, so makes that a little bit less likely. And then I'll keep the Sink into Stupor in hand, also just as another blue card for Force. So we'll see what our opponent's up to. A red-black with a looting. So, yeah, points towards a graveyard deck where Mistcaller should be effective. And yeah, Galta and Ulamog discarded. So Mistcaller is going to get to Feast. For now, I think I still Mentor. And then next turn we'll have Hexcatcher available. If they are playing sweepers, we can always Force. Thoughtseize. Yeah, I guess we'll let that one go. They probably take either Force or Hexcatcher, but we still have the Mistcaller, and then next turn I'll be able to keep up whatever they don't take. Takes the Force. And another looting. Okay, so probably just gonna play the Hexcatcher to get in more damage. Opponent getting rid of a Necromancy, so they already have a reanimation spell in hand. But they're looking for a way past the Mistcaller. So, can play Otawara. Just gonna main phase the Hexcatcher and attack. So this is a pretty fast clock. And death on Galta. Sack Mistcaller. Opponent still loses all the life. Falls to 2. And they seem pretty dead here. And there we go. Mistcaller claims another victim. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. We've got 3 lands, double Hexcatcher, Master. So we're a bit light on interaction, just a Hexcatcher to maybe stop non-creature spells. But being on the play means that at least we can be off to a quick start against other creature decks as well. So I'll try it. And I'm leaning towards playing this tapped first. Opponent on a blue deck. And an Interlacer, so this is the Affinity deck. This could certainly be a tougher matchup. Is there anything I need to Hexcatcher early on? I don't think so. They're probably gonna run cards like Emery, or the Artifact Token Maker with Warp into more cheap things. I guess there's a world where they play the Manufacturing, which could have been worth countering with a Hexcatcher, because that can be very scary combined with an Arcbound Ravager. Alright, Tamio. We can also Dismember.
Oh no! I'm late for class.
And another Mentor. Alright, so we're off to a reasonable start. And do I Dismember Tamio? I think that's fine, and then I can still play a Hexcatcher to keep up the pressure and stop any potential non-creature spells. And without the early artifacts, our opponent might struggle to enable some of their affinity synergies. They might have their own Force here. Alright, fair enough. I can counter back by sacking a token, which is why I played Hexcatcher first. Now we don't have quite as much pressure, but opponent also doesn't have anything in play yet. Springleaf Drum will make it easier to cast their red spells going forward. And there's Emery, always powerful. And mills the Foundry, which can make lots of servos and thopters, and even constructs if they have a thopter to begin with. Another interlacer, I don't think I want to counter. So now we just want to try and get the game over with as quickly as possible, since our opponent will eventually take over the late game. Master to enable Island Walk is useful, but I guess our opponent doesn't technically have any islands yet. So yeah, I think we go for Mentor first and go wide before we pump the rest of the team. And then if I can draw an untapped land here, which is any land in the deck, we can double Lord, which is a lot of pressure. Seat of the Synods, also not an island. Gets back Tormod script, so they probably want the extra affinity. Triggers the interlacers, and now a Thought Monitor to draw to. So yeah, opponent's deck is now going off. So we have a very limited window to get the game over with before they fully take over. Krang will draw 3, blocks pretty well. And they might not have many islands for us to enable Island Walk. Mox Amber, I'm gonna let slide, I think. Is it worth countering? Give up on a token. It does trigger Interlacer again, so maybe it is worth fighting over. But I still have the dream of playing 2 Lords and getting this up to a 4-4 next turn. If we can draw Harbinger to turn their lands into islands, then of course Master can close out the game very quickly. And it's not like their deck typically runs much removal. But yeah, they are not lacking in the card draw department. I lost track of how many spells they've cast this turn. Started with Tormod script, Thought Monitor, Krang, Mox, Ornithopter. Did draw the land. So then I first want to maybe play the Master. Opponent could technically try and counter with a Metallic Rebuke, but I can easily Hexcatcher back. Yep. So I'll just sack a token now. And then if I attack with my 2 Mentors, I can wait and see if I want to Hexcatcher again or play the Silvergill Mentor here. Opponent is trading Krang and Shumps, so I'm less incentivized to Hexcatcher now. Possible I should have just used Cavern of Souls on Master to begin with. Then they would not have rebuked, but then they could have rebuked my follow-up. Alright, so we're in a position where Harbinger, enabling Island Walk, can win it. And just an attack with Hexcatcher pumping the team could be pretty good as well. Emery get back Interlacer, which still has a memory of its intensity, since that's how alchemy cards work. So can immediately draw another 3 cards here at least. There's Emissary, so that's how they can generate a very big board presence. Luckily for us, the drone tokens don't block our Merfolk. But that's not going to stop them from going off and getting some other affinity cards in play. To my knowledge, they don't have a way to just win on the spot from this board. They don't seem to be on the manufacturing Ravager build. And there's another Emissary. Interlacer draws 5. Now 6. So the only real limitation is how much mana they have. Foundry can turn Thopters into 4/4 constructs, but they currently don't have any Thopters in play. So I guess that's fine. I mean, possible they're sandbagging Ornithopters. Sack Interlacer, draw 7. They can easily play Kappa Cannoneer. If they have another land or mox, it's going to be the Fiery Islet. Into another Thought Monitor. More card draw, but also an extra 2/2 blocker. So yeah, as it stands, I'm not going to be able to attack for lethal, and our opponent can likely assemble a lethal army for next turn. And as we suspected, more Ornithopters, which also pair well with the Foundry. So yeah, my only winning line is to top deck Harbinger to give the team Island Walk. I don't think anything else is going to do it for me. So we've got 4 winning top decks. So opponent is certainly favored here. A moment of truth. Because of Cavern, I don't think they're gonna keep digging for Mox into Metallic Rebuke, but we'll see here. They've got 25 cards remaining, so that might also be a concern now. Opponent actually discards double Metallic Rebuke, draws Silvergill. Yeah, Silvergill doesn't quite do it here. Can play it, see if I would have drawn the Harbinger on the following draw step. But I don't think we'll be able to survive this. We're at 16. I mean, I guess they technically don't have a lethal in the air. And they will have to chump. Drew another Hexcatcher. So an all-out attack still seems warranted. I guess they can ambush the Hexcatcher with a 4/4. So then maybe I'm better off holding that one back. But now that I'm trading away the Master, the Island Walk plan is no longer a factor. But we're just going to try to brute force past all their creatures that can actually block. And then hope for the best. So I guess I'm a little bit surprised that they didn't keep digging with the Interlacer to make enough flyers to actually present lethal. But maybe they've got a plan in mind. Double block Master to maybe play around a Dismember, although I imagine they have a Force in hand by now. Although then again, I guess we also have the Hexcatcher again. I'm just gonna flash in Hexcatcher. And we get to trade. Take out your construct. Opponent falls to 3. So there's still a chance. Unless they've got a way to pump their tokens here. Emery can get back a Thought Monitor. They'll have at least 2 more Ornithopters in the deck. Tamiyo can block, so they might be able to generate enough blockers where they can still survive another attack. So yeah, we had a great start, but we'll have to wait and see here what happens. It is funny seeing all these blue lands without an actual island. Opponent is going for Krang, which is a bit surprising given how many cards they already have in hand. So maybe they just want a bigger creature. Activate Archway. Next spell has Improvise. Am I about to get Emrakuld here? Karn the Great Creator. I guess can maybe get something out of the sideboard that's relevant. So this is only the next spell. So sure. Karn happens. If they plus... it's only non-creature artifacts. So maybe there's a creature in the sideboard that they want to get. Mox Amber resolves. Pithing Needle to stop the Hexcatcher, perhaps? So what are they trying to set up here? It's going to be some sort of non-creature spell that would maybe kill me on the spot. Can't think of too much. Is it like a Goblin Bombardment, maybe? Then they would have just played it. Yeah, that's fine. Opponent's having difficulty spelling Vodalian Hexcatcher. So yeah, they're about to time out. I'm very curious to see what happens. Plays another Islet. Although those are dangerous when you're at 3 life. So it doesn't look like I'm dying right now. Which feels weird after our opponent's drawn their entire deck. And there's Krang. So they currently have 2 blockers that can get in the way. Foundry can make 1 more. And now our opponent's going to go digging. 12 cards remain. So they need more copies of Mox Amber to empty their hands, and Ornithopter is a good one too. And there's Tamio. Using the Springleaf Drum. So they only have their painful lands left. And yeah, opponent's also about to time out here if they're not careful. So we skipped past the attack step. And there's a Cannoneer, so that's the actual win condition. That can easily win the game if you go off with your emissaries. But they did not have it in play last turn, which is when they really needed it. Another Interlacer, opponent falls to 1. So they currently have 5 blockers to my 5 attackers. They are at 1. But it looks like they'll be able to survive. Master wasn't a bad draw. But there's still no islands in circulation. So play Master. And all I can really do is attack and hope for the best. Cannoneer is going to be unblockable, so there's no point in trying to stay back to block. Attacking Karn also an option, but may as well force them to block all my creatures here. If we drew a Floodpits Drowner, that could have won the game for us, tapping down a blocker. So I'll get to trade for Krang. So still worth playing now. And they still have the Foundry to sack Ornithopter and make a 4-4. So yeah, I think we're going to lose this game with our opponent at 1 life. They just need to grow the Cannoneer a few times, and with the Emissary that should not be a problem. Best I can hope for is that they accidentally sack an Interlacer and draw too many cards. So yeah, very close game, very thin margins. If we ever found our Harbinger, we could have probably ended the game. Same with a small window where a Drowner might have done it. There's another Krang. Cannoneer up to 8 power. So this is already a lethal attack with the 1/1 flyers. Another Cannoneer. Karn's gonna minus. And getting Krang, the Warlord, which they can probably still cast thanks to the Archway. But they might be overcomplicating matters. And there's Krang. And now the Masterminds also has Flying and Haste. And that'll do it. So a stylish finish to a very long game. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. We've got Mistcaller for some of the unfair decks. Harbinger hopefully turn 3 to shut down their mana. Bit of card draw, bit of interaction. So seems reasonably balanced. Do not have our Force of Negation, which can be important as well against some of the combo decks in the format. Turn 1 Takenuma, Stitcher Supplier. So this is a graveyard deck. Milling Creeping Chill. So yeah, Mistcaller could be effective. Drew another one. And our opponent scoops it up. Well, Mistcaller might be well positioned right now. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We have Cavern to cast our Merfolk. Mistcaller into Mentor into Hexcatcher, hoping for Harbinger. Yeah, it's okay. We'll need to find another blue source. But at least a Mistcaller can stop some of the shenanigans in the format. Hexcatcher also helps. And a Fell Mire, so Definitely looks like some sort of combo deck where Mistcaller could be effective. Still leaning Mentor over Hexcatcher, but we'll see what this turn brings to the table. Alright, now Realm of Co means that they're not necessarily on a combo deck, they're just kind of mono-black control. Thoughtseize likely to take the Harbinger, which would otherwise shut down their mana. But they might have a few swamps in hand. Yep, takes the Harbinger. And Drowner the draw. Still leaning Mentor. Possible they have something like Toxic Deluge next turn. But we only lose 2 creatures, so it's not a disaster. And then next turn the Lords are going to be a bit more effective with 3 Merfolk that can attack. Okay, now I can double spell Mind Spring into Hexcatcher. And we've got enough creatures we can sacrifice to counter non-creature spells. And there's a Swamp. And a Rotting Regisaur that was not on my radar. Okay, I mean the Drowner's a fine way to slow that down. And we might just have lethal here now. Master into Drowner is more damage than Animating Mutavaults. And there we go. Quick and easy. So yeah, we got to see this updated version of mono-blue Merfolk now in action, and the little Mistcaller definitely saved the day on a few occasions, stopping decks like Reanimator, cards like Green Sun Zenith out of the Elves decks, so certainly cannot be underestimated. And in general, it kind of points towards a trend of Historic speeding up and needing cheaper and cheaper answers, so as opposed to maybe playing a second color like green for extra Lords and Collected Company, which is how we usually built the Merfolk deck before in Historic. Now I think you want to keep the deck a little bit more streamlined, include cards like Mistcaller and Force of Negation to give you a chance against all the fast combo decks, and then hopefully you still have enough Lord synergies to help you beat other creature decks by just outgrowing them, but that's not always going to be the case, and you can certainly be an underdog in some of the other creature matchups like the Elf deck, which can just outgrow you a lot faster, and they mostly ignore cards like the Harbinger, turning all lands into islands, since their mana base is mostly just basic lands anyway. So yeah, overall, Merfolk definitely a solid option, but certainly not one of the top tier decks, since it's not gonna steal games for free on turn 2 or 3 like some of the other decks in the format, but still a deck to keep in mind and something not to underestimate. So yeah, that's gonna do it for today's gameplay. Wanna thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.